are your opinions on heat pumps, guys? What do you think?
What are we looking at here? To me, it looks like a big white box, and I would like to know what it does and why you have it.
This is a heat pump made by Mitsubishi. It's their Hyperheat line. So you can tell that by this red sticker here. And what that means, it offers 100% heating capacity down to -5 degrees. Okay. So no matter how cold it is, this machine is able to heat your house. And then it's also an air conditioner, and it's able to cool your house. What's great about it is it's extremely efficient. So homeowners in Bedford, Pound Ridge, often their heating cost is one of their largest operational costs of the home. Other than property taxes, in my experience, it's the second highest operational cost of owning a home in this area. So when you switch to a heat pump, you're able to get an extremely efficient piece of equipment that provides both heating and cooling.
So it's your AC and your heater and everything else that you need to run an energy efficient home, really.
And it's extremely reliable.
And quiet.
Quiet. And I think it looks good.
You know, you can drive by and be like, oh, that guy cares about the planet.
Exactly.
Even if you care more about your bills, you do also care about the planet.
This is true.
It's kind of the environmentalist dream, right? Save money and do good. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Yeah, here's the Venn diagram. There's a big overlap.
How long have you had this guy?
I've had this for 2.5 years.
Okay.
This home was originally electric baseboard heat, which anyone who has knows is very expensive to run. And I was able to cut my electric bill to be about 30% of what it was before after installing the heat pump.
I know there's a couple of different types of heat pumps. What's the difference between air source, geothermal?
There's air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps. Ground source heat pumps, or sometimes called geothermal heat pumps, you transfer heat through a fluid that circulates deep into the earth.
Yeah.
Glucose water mix, and that will go through pipes deep underneath the ground, and then that will transfer with a refrigerant, and then that gets transferred with air, all heat transfer. And then an air source heat pump transfers the refrigerant with the air outside your home.
Is one more expensive than the other?
Ground source is much more expensive, much more invasive to the home. You have to drill deep into the ground. You have to trench into the basement. You have to make holes in your foundation. Depending on what kind of soil content and rock formation you have in the property, the heat transfer can be very different amongst homes. Whereas air source heat pump is a much more simpler install. And in my experience, the juice is more worth the squeeze. Okay. So it's much less, the benefits that you're getting for the air source heat pump, I think, outweigh the ground source heat pump.
I also know there's government incentives and rebates out there. I love to make the government give me money. So if I wanted a heat pump and I wanted to take advantage of the incentives that are out there, I mean, what would you say to a client who is putting in a heat pump about how they can get some money?
If NYSEG is your utility, they do they have two types of rebates right now. They have, if you keep your boiler or you keep your furnace and you use heat pump as the supplemental source, but still the main source of heat in your home, it's $800 per 10,000 BTUs. So what that looks like in practice for a very large home, it can be $10,000 to $15,000. For a more standard size home, $5,000 to $10,000. And then if you decommission the boiler, that goes up even more. And then if you're on Con Edison has a flat rate rebate, which is $8,000 if you decommission the boiler.
In my home, we were just talking about this, I have baseboard heating. I do have ducts, but I know that baseboard heating can make the switch over to a heat pump a little more difficult. So in my personal home, how would I get to be more energy efficient with a heat pump?
In our experience in the Bedford homes is that if you have baseboards as your heat source, often there's certain little nooks and crannies that might not have vents, and it makes most sense to keep the baseboards as your heat and then supplemental that heat with forced air heating through the vents. And what that looks like in practice is that you'll run your heat pumps as your primary source of heat most of the year. Okay. So for example, right now it's end of October. Most folks have turned on their heating system. You would not have turned on your boiler because there's the small rooms that maybe aren't getting enough heat and it's not necessary. So you'll be able to reduce your oil consumption substantially by doing that.
So if I have a boiler that's kind of reaching the end of its life, Would it make sense for me to get a heat pump or just replace my old system? What's going to be more cost effective?
Let's say you have a boiler with forced air heating. And in that situation, it's definitely really smart to consider all heat pumps, because rather than investing in a new boiler, you can invest in new heat pumps, which will get you brand new air conditioning, brand new heating. That's going to cost you a lot less each month to operate. If you have a situation like you mentioned with radiators, then it most likely makes sense to keep the boiler as a backup and then install heat pumps to be your main source of heat, but still heating the nooks and crannies that maybe the forced air isn't reaching.
What if I have an old boiler that needs to be replaced, but a new AC system? Do I switch to a heat pump or do I just replace the boiler?
Really depends on the situation. If your ACs are brand new, that does make it tough. So if you are replacing your AC, do a heat pump, because replacing an air conditioner, replacing a heat pump, the cost is so similar. So it's really quite silly to do just air conditioning at this point.
So no more ACs, just heat pumps.
Yeah, and you see that with the manufacturers. I mean, it depends on brand, but most of the manufacturers you see are leaning all the way to heat pumps. The cost of a heat pump versus the cost of an AC is so similar.
Okay.
To just put AC in is unless you're in a climate like Florida or something, it really doesn't make sense.
So the cost difference between a new AC unit and a new heat pump is about the same. Why would I choose a heat pump?
Our experience in this area, the main reason is the oil bill. So people don't like the experience of getting oil, how expensive it is, the smell, the experience of getting deliveries, managing oil tanks that leak. So just not having to worry about that is a real positive. So if you are going to be investing in your air conditioning, investing in a heat pump is
That's the way to go.
really the way to go.
What's the maintenance look like?
Certainly less maintenance than a boiler. The most important maintenance on a heat pump is changing your filters.
Okay.
So similar to an air conditioner. What we've found is it's really important, depending on the shrubbery and greenery you have around your heat pumps, to make sure that any cotton or leaves are getting cleaned out. So for a lot of our customers like to be on a maintenance plan where we come and clean the outdoor coils. And then the third thing would be making sure the heat pump stays level.
What are the most commonly asked questions that you get from clients?
Usually we like to think about it as comfort is first, right? Like the comfort of your home is what matters most. The second thing would be energy savings. So I would say homeowners are concerned with, okay, I know I'm going to save money, but am I going to still be comfortable? I don't want to be cold. So that's where it comes that you really need to carefully analyze the home, the size of the ductwork, how much CFM air is getting pushed through the vents, and then making sure that you size the equipment so it meets that demand.
What are you most heat pumped about coming in 2025?
Word is getting out, so there's a lot of homeowners that have now switched to the heat pumps, and they're telling their friends, they're telling their neighbors, and I think more and more people are going to make the switch. So I think that's what I'm most heat pumped about.
Good for your home. It's good for your wallet. It also happens to be good for the planet, which, of course, as a climate person, I care about. But that it's also got all these other benefits about it. I mean, why wouldn't you get a heat pump? It sounds like that's the way to go. That's the future of heating and cooling your house, I think.
100%.